What's going on, everybody? FYB presents Wise Word Wednesdays, a quick YouTube stream, or should I say, a quick live stream that's going to help you get closer towards accomplishing your dreams. Listen, if you are watching, you know, right now we are live, whether you're watching on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, on Twitter Live, whether you're listening on our podcast version on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or any podcasts or that you get your podcast from. We just really appreciate you for taking the time to listen to today's podcast episode. I'm super excited about today because I had some last minute change ups. I was originally supposed to have one guest on, and I some things didn't work out, so they couldn't make it at the last minute. I was just gonna think I was gonna have to do an impromptu, podcast episode where I'm just talking, which I don't mind talking. I could do that for sure. But today I had a friend that reached out and they said that they were able to be on it. So yeah, I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. But before we get to that, I think it's important if you could do me a favor and hit that like button. If you're not already, please hit that subscribe button. The like button is really simple, but what it does for YouTube or what it does for Facebook, what it does for the algorithms, it basically shows that you enjoy the content that we're producing and that you also are sharing it for other people too. So please go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, because we want to continue to give information. And not only that, but you have no idea what that like, comment, subscription, or what that share could mean and could do for someone else who is interested in the content that we have. Pastor Childs used to always say, eat the fish and spit out the bones. So everything that we talk about, it might not be relevant to you, but it might be relevant to those that you follow, or those that follow you, or those that you come in contact with. So listen, today's guest is someone that I've known for over 15 years. We go really, really well far back, all the way into our college days. We were college roommates for a couple years. We took classes together. We got into undergrad at the same time, graduated at the same time. We also are part of the same fraternity. And so I'm really excited to have this man on. He's going to talk about his journey into becoming a professional wrestler. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you could do me a favor and welcome BLAQ Lightening, Mr. BLAQLight himself. What's going on, man?
It's a pleasure to be here, man. As you know, we go way back. We've had so many journeys together, so many experiences together. Being able to participate today with Wise Word Wednesday and being able to share this journey that I've embarked on, it's definitely a pleasure, a true honor, and I'm glad that I was able to jump in and fill the space with you.
No doubt, man. You're definitely doing me a solid one, because I would have been talking for a couple of minutes to the mic, which again, like I said, I could do all day, all night. But I think it's also better when I have that back and forth, that dialogue. But also, with you, you recently became a professional wrestler, and ever since I've known you, so pretty much since we were about 18 years old, you've been talking about you wanting to do wrestling as a profession. So could you first off tell a little bit of people about who BLAQLight is, like what do you do, and everything? Give them the inside scoop if you can.
All right. So BLAQLight in the ring is a superhero, wears a mask, comes out with a cape, does all the posing, the flexing. Finishing move is called the Super Power Slam. Everything that BLAQLight does is super. He has super strength, super speed, the archetypal superhero. Outside the ring, and that's what I do. I currently am in the social work field, mental health case manager. I am supportive to people who have severe mental health conditions, also those who are recovering from addiction, whether it be drug, alcohol, homelessness. I help with helping them get back on their feet, really, coordinating doctor's appointments, medical appointments, counseling, getting them the resources in the community that they need, and helping them get acclimated to the community.
So I appreciate you sharing that information. What And because we'll talk about, the health services and stuff that you provide to the community, because I love that. I think that's huge for people to be aware of, that what you do in the area that you do it in as well too. So just in case somebody may know of someone that's seeking some help or support, they know how to access that information, or those resources as well. But I do want to go in regards to your wrestling. What got you interested in wrestling in the first place? I mean, that's not something that's super, you know what I mean, like super common, even though technically it is common, because I remember like when I grew up into the WWF era, this pre WWE, the D Generation X, the Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, you know what I'm saying, the Bret the Hitman Hart and all of that, Undertaker, Kane, Stone Cold, The Rock, the list goes on. So what got you interested in becoming a professional wrestler?
I think what really got me interested in becoming a professional wrestler, because like you said, we grew up in the same era. So we watched the same people, we were entertained by the same people. Um, and for me, my favorites ended up being Kane and Undertaker.
Mm,
And it was, aside from the wrestling, it was the supernatural aspect of things. So being able to see these two guys and they look like superheroes. One, they got the long hair, one has the mask. They come out with fire and lightning and all the theatrics that come with it. So it ended up being a lot more than just two guys who are in tights and wrestling each other. Now you have this whole dynamic of you know super powered humans who are capable of doing stuff that nobody else can do. And that was really what kind of got me hooked into the theatrics of things. So it was like, oh, there's a whole lot more to this. um, and then just growing up being able to continue watching. And for me, I would say that as a kid watching professional wrestling, it was one of those things where doing that helped me stay away from participating in other stuff happening in the neighborhood, in the community, that might have got me in a little more trouble. um, where it was cool, where Monday nights and Thursday nights I'm watching uh, wrestling instead of hanging out with some peers around the corner, where, for lack of better terms, we've taken different journeys in life. And, I'm grateful to say that I'm still able to continue mine, if you know what I mean.
absolutely. No, absolutely. I think that's great. Because again, it brings me back to, my childhood as well, too, right? Like wanting to be in the ring, wanting to be able to, Monday Night Raw, Thursday night SmackDown. In fact, I have Peacock, so I actually every day pretty much end up watching some sort of old school. I think right now I'm on February of 2000. February of the year 2000 is what I'm on right now. So I went all the way back to the 90s and then watched every, or as many Raw, SmackDown episodes all the way up until February 2000. Well, 2000 is when SmackDown first got started, like late 1999, 2000. And so now I'm moving forward and watching those. So I got to catch up. I only got about 20 more years, 23 more years to go to catch up to it. But what is, when you talk about trying to become a professional wrestler, what's the developmental process like how do you prepare, how does one prepare themselves for becoming a professional wrestler?
um,
What's the workout, the routine, you know what I
oh
mean?
um, Really, I'd say the most important thing when it comes to it is your conditioning,
Mm,
being able to keep your cardio up. So whether or not you have a physique that's chiseled, or you might have a little more skin, a little more meat, what have you, regardless of your height, regardless of your weight, you have to be able to go the distance. So if you're asked to go 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, you might have days like I had a couple weeks ago where I had to wrestle 5 matches in a day.
ooh,
So yeah, it was a little banged up, but being able to go out again and again and again and do what you need to do and not miss a beat, being able to get that conditioning going so that you can tell the story that you need to tell. Um, it is not necessarily about being the strongest or being the fastest or being the best as an athlete in most instances, but it's about getting across the story that you need to get across. Um, examples of that, someone we grew up with to be Rey Mysterio, who's always
Mm,
been the underdog. He's always been smaller than everybody. So, yet he's been world champion multiple times. So
right.
his
World heavyweight
story,
champ.
yes, a world heavyweight champ, despite me being 100 pounds heavier than he is. um, but with that, his story isn't about him being stronger than people. It's about him being able to go the distance and tell his story of still being smaller and being able to overcome all the odds. So that conditioning and cardio is so important when it comes to being a professional wrestler. And I'd always tell anybody that wants to look into it, start there.
It's interesting because many people, talk about how wrestling is fake, right? But when you look at previous athletes, I've looked at people and I've looked at interviews of people who were professional UFC fighters and professional wrestlers, and they mentioned that they got more injuries wrestling than they actually did doing professional UFC. So the risk that you take being in this profession, um, could you talk a little bit about that risk and how dangerous it actually is, even though it might be quote unquote fake? Like, it's hard to slam someone on the ground from up in the air and then say, oh, that was fake. Like, you still did slam them. It may have been premeditated, right? It may have been already planned, but this person is still putting their body at risk. So talk about, if you can, the risks that you're taking. I mean, I even saw a video of a guy who was doing I don't know if it was like an amateur pro or amateur, just completely in the backyard boogie, one of those kind of things. And he jumped off the top ropes, and as he was doing his entrance, and landed, and his knees buckled. And he, like, his calf went all the way up to his kneecap, for both legs. And so could you just talk about the preparation and how dangerous it is and the risk that you're taking when you're talking about becoming a professional wrestler?
Yeah. So, and I want to preface before going into all that risk that oftentimes what happens in the ring isn't planned. And I've learned
Mm,
that firsthand. So, a lot of times we go out there just off the knowledge that we have of how to stay safe. So, there's a lot of training in how to do stuff the right way. Not just how to slam someone the right way or hit someone the right way, but how to take hits and take slams the right way. A lot of times the injuries happen when people are, as we call it in the business, blown, but when they're gassed, when they're tired. So when you're asked to go 10 minutes and 6 minutes in, you're out of air, you can't breathe, you're tired, it's hard to go. A lot of injuries happen because of a lack of preparation. And people haven't been prepared to pick up a guy that's 250 pounds over their shoulders and slam them. They might hurt themselves or hurt the person they're trying to slam. If they haven't been prepared to go off the top rope and jump on somebody or catch somebody coming off the top rope, somebody is going to get hurt. The training in doing it the right way is really important. And that risk is so high because we're doing all of this just off the hope and the strength that the person that we're across the ring with has the experience and the training and the know-how to keep us safe while making it look like they're tearing us apart. Um, so I have to learn how to fall right, protect my body to make this guy's body slam look like it's the hardest body slam in the world. But if he slams me the wrong way, if he doesn't put me down the right way, I could get seriously hurt in the process as well. A lot of training, again, a lot of emphasis on your physical training outside of wrestling as well, being able to have the stamina to go, the strength to do stuff, the agility to do stuff. And really, I would say the risk happens when people don't keep it simple. When people decide that it's necessary to do a flip off the top rope for some reason, or do a crazy slam that requires somebody doing a lot of loops when it's not necessary when you're telling a story of who's better than who in the ring. Sometimes you don't have to do it. It might look cool in a viral video, but when you're wanting to protect your opponent in the ring, it's necessary to just do what's smart and tell the story in a way where everybody is safe. And I think that that's also the credibility of a really talented wrestler is how simple can they keep a match? How basic can they do moves and still entertain people? Examples from our childhood would be someone like for me, I go to The Rock. The Rock didn't do a lot of really high flying moves. A lot of stuff were really simple moves, but how many of us are going to say The Rock might be the greatest to ever do it?
Right. No,
So
that's
what I go
real.
to. Mhm.
Another one's a Stone Cold. He didn't really do too many high flying, moves. But I guess he also got, had to have that neck surgery, which kind of changed the way that he, wrestled because of that particular injury.
And I think that's a good point you bring up. He changed his style because of an injury. So he got hurt and he had to limit himself with everything he could do. And he was still so good at it. He was so good and so entertaining and was also someone that people say might be the greatest to ever do it. And literally did nothing exciting, especially after his injury, but still was able to tell that story that he needed to tell. And I think it goes back to what we're saying. He lowered the risk of injury for himself. He lowered that risk of injury for the people he was in the ring with and told that story that he needed to where he could be called the greatest to do it.
No doubt. So the purpose of this podcast is really to give people, I call it a podcast, but the purpose of this show, right? Because it is a show. Even though we do have a podcast that people is our style of listening, but this is essentially a show. The purpose of this show is to kind of provide people with information in regards to career style or what they're interested in to hopefully make their path to success a little bit easier than maybe your path. So if you could, and you could talk about this either about your specific profession in wrestling. You could talk about this in your professional life within services for the community, or you could talk about this professional or in your personal life or whatever. But what's the worst mistake that you think you've ever made, whether it be professionally or in life? What do you think is the worst mistake that you've made? And I know I'm kind of spur of the moment on you here because again, this podcast was an impromptu episode, but what do you think is the worst mistake that you've ever made in life, either professionally or personally?
I would say it's a deep one, but I would say I would have to decide that my biggest mistake was believing that I had to compete with other people to find success.
Ooh,
Um, and I say that I think it's great that I'm on the podcast or I'm on this live episode with you because as you know and we can attest to it, it was a lot of like friendly sibling rivalry, and like
right.
it was never like a jealousy thing. Like I've always given you your flowers with everything. We've done everything together, apply for jobs together. We were at the lowest of lows together. So, but it was easy for me at times to like look across the way and see my brother doing this and then see me right here and think that I had to do more than this person in order to be successful or be happy. Um, and I think that in a lot of ways, I shot myself in the foot with finding success and finding happiness because my concern was not my own happiness and it wasn't my own success. It was what success looks like in comparison to my peers. It was what does
Mm,
happiness look like in comparison to my peers. So I think that there are a lot of times and opportunities that I missed out on. A lot of times where I may have made a decision that wasn't in my own best interest, even though I thought it was, and even if it may have benefited me in ways that I have grown from, I've benefited from it. I've gotten something out of it. I can look back and say, if I could do it over, I would do it differently. Just with the understanding of happiness that I have now, of success that I have now, and really just wanting to find my place in society where I'm able to plant my feet and say, I feel good about what I'm doing and who I am.
Mm. How did you get to that, point? Because I think we all have had that experience where we look across the table or we look across the room and we see, our peers and we see their level of success, but and then it causes us to then question where we are currently, right? But um because I know for me it took a while, right? When I would see I would see other things and I would be like, man, like when is it my turn? But eventually I got to the point where I said, honestly, like it's always been my turn. Like I've always been, you know what I mean, successful. It's just a matter of perspective, right? Maybe to and this is kind of why I think I've talked about this in one of my previous Wise Word Wednesdays, is that there's always someone who's uh, looking up to what you've done and seeing you as success. So it's like, yeah, maybe if I'm comparing myself to a classmate that became a millionaire and I'm like, oh, I'm still a thousandaire, yeah, then I could feel like crap. But what about the people who come from where I've come from, who aren't even having a successful job, or who doesn't can't even get a job, or who doesn't even have a degree, who didn't go to college, who, you know what I'm saying, like who still doesn't have a car, right? Like you have all these ways that technically someone else is looking at you saying, I wish I was there. But we always find ourselves looking up and saying, I wish I was there, not even realizing there's a whole bunch of people on the other side saying, and we're who they look up to. So when did you get to that? I said all that to say, when did you get to that point in life where you felt content with what you have, and not necessarily content with what you have in a sense of not wanting more, but content with what you have in regards to not comparing it to someone else? Because they say that comparison is the thief of joy, right? So when did you get to that point?
Um, very recently, very recently. Without going into too much detail, I did have a pretty traumatic personal experience with some family of mine. There were some relatives, um, and things got a little messy between myself and some relatives, where there were a lot of times where I found myself uh, pointing the finger at myself, trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, what I did wrong, how I was contributing to problems. Um, I've always, I've always prided myself in being accountable. Um, and in this scenario, when I'm looking in the mirror and I'm trying to figure out uh, how I can be accountable, what I may have done, what I could have done, how my actions may have impacted people, there were a lot of times where I looked back at myself and said, you know what, you're a good person. You are a good person. You've worked hard to try to be the best that you have, the best that you are. Um, Being able to have that realization that I may not be where I want to be, but that doesn't mean that I'm not at a good place. Coming to that realization was so important. And though I wish that the drama that took place didn't take place, it was really important for me and my personal growth to be able to accept that I am a good person. I am a hardworking person. I am somebody who has done the work to try to better myself and better the world around me, better my community, inspire people that are coming up after me, and giving back and being able to be proud of that. That was important to me, to be able to be proud of that and not look down on myself because I wasn't where I thought I should be. Looking down on myself because I wasn't where my friends are, where my peers are. Taking ownership of that was so important, and I'm glad that I came to that realization.
I love that. And it's interesting because in life sometimes it's those traumatic worse things, right, that cause us to come to the realization of who we are and what our purpose is and what we're supposed to do. um so I think it's admirable that you took that pain, that trauma, that what many may see as something being meant to break you, and you turn that essentially into your motivation and what pushes you to that next level to cause you to have peace of mind as a human being. I think that's super dope. I always say that your struggle can be your struggle is your gasoline. And I always say that gasoline can be used as an engine, or it can be used to start a fire. Both is the same product, right? It depending on how you use that particular product is going to be what your life is. So while many may have been in your circumstance and chose to give up and quit and to end things in life and to use that as the reason, and they could have been rightfully so to do that, because what you went through was very traumatic, and it changes other people's perspective. It changes the way that you are. It changes the way that you operate, the way that you navigate through life. um they would have been justified to use that. But again, that's the fire, right? That's the burn everything up. That's the it's gonna melt everything. Nothing that touches fire keeps the same shape. One of those type of things. Or you can use it as gasoline. And you can use gasoline in a car. You can use it in a jet, right? In a plane. You can use it in all types of different vehicles. You can use gasoline in a tractor, right? In a lawnmower, a weed whacker. You can use gasoline to basically help fuel whatever that dream is. And so I think it's admirable that you took that scenario, that situation, and it kind of gave you that peace of mind sense, and it caused you to then move forward in the appropriate way without having to compare yourself to your peers. And I do want to acknowledge a comment. We got my man Reezy, I'm saying. Reezy is in there. He said, yes, sir. Reezy, man, appreciate you tuning in. It's been a minute. We still got to do that collaboration with you, man. It's love. It's love. Oh, he said, hold on. He said, future SmackDown star in the building. Shout out to that boy, man. It's love, brother. It's love, man. Like I said, we got to do that collab on the podcast. I know you and your boys be doing the podcast as well too. So it's much, much love, and appreciate you for tuning in. But if you could, Mr. Blacklight, if you could talk about the dualities that you have, right? Because it's a lot to kind of balance being a professional, full-time professional, while simultaneously being a professional wrestler as well too. So honestly, I'm gonna say it's hard to balance a full-time job, right? Servicing the community while simultaneously being a full-time wrestler. So if you could, talk about the duality and how challenging that may be to balance that duality while especially serving the community, which is always in need. It's constantly in need. How is that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, however it is? How does that affect you, or even your family, those that you service, those that you love, those that you put as a priority? Tell me about that challenge.
Oh, there's a lot there. um, I'll start with I'll start with what my job is. So I have a set of clients. There are boundaries that need to be set. There, where my personal life is out the scope of things. The difficulty is I'm in the public sphere. So, I'm a pro athlete. I'm tagged in different posts all over the internet. I'm in productions that are aired on television, streamed all over the internet.
He basically trying to say he big time. That's basically what he's saying. I'm Mr. Big Time.
When the wallet reflects that, I'll say that. But but there's a lot of attention that's shown in my direction and in the direction of other companies that I perform for. So being able to like keep those worlds separate sometimes is difficult. I actually had an incident where one of the clients on my caseload found my professional wrestling page and started sending me messages there. And that was against work rules, but the issue is, where I was going back at work, and it wasn't that I wanted to interact with this person because I'm breaking all kinds of rules that way, but it was, is this person actually crossing a boundary by interacting with a public page of an entertainer? Um, so we kind of had to go to HR, figure out what the rules are. Ultimately, I blocked the client, and I try to block all the clients ahead of time. And it's, it kind of sucks, but work is work. So finding that balance of trying to separate those realms can be difficult at times because I'm still in the public. So a fan could come to the shows and see me, and then I have to be in character mode, but also know that this is a client, but also, and find that dynamic of how do I interact with this client as BLAQLight and not as Maurice Connor, their case manager. There are times earlier this summer, I was in a cage match. And I got pretty scuffed up from the cage match. I still got some scars, still a little bit of a shiner. I got a gnarly black eye from in that cage match. And just the guy that I was wrestling, he got a size 13 tattooed on his ribs. So he didn't. I just want to be clear.
So you basically saying you left him with some damage too. You wasn't the only one that got a little something. Okay, no doubt.
I need to be clear because he could hide his damage. I couldn't.
Right.
So then I'm going to work with a giant black eye on my face, and now that world is totally intertwined. Where now it's either I say how I got the black eye or it's a lie, and then it's suspect if you see someone like me that's walking around with a black eye. Did he get in a fist fight over the weekend? Kind of, but it's not what you think. Was he just like at a bar and got into it with some guys, or is it a domestic dispute type situation? So it's like I have to be open and transparent at times about what I do outside of my day job, so that my day job understands that there's not anything that's going on. So if they see me limping, if they see a gash or a scratch or a black eye, they know that it's not because of me participating with anything that I shouldn't be participating with. Now, some of the cool stuff with it, though, which I think is really awesome, is that I get to tie in my love for the community with pro wrestling in a multitude of ways. And we do with what the main company I wrestle for in Sacramento, Next Level Pro Wrestling, we do a lot of charity shows. Our last charity show was for an organization called Futures Explored, and they're a company that helps people with intellectual and developmental disabilities get acclimated in the community through jobs or college. So we did a really cool charity show with them, and I actually became the first ever Futures champion. So I do got me a belt, another belt, because I'm also world tag team champion somewhere else. So so I got that belt. We're doing another fundraiser this month on the 30th. That is for a church in town. That's really cool. And then later in the year, we actually are partnering with the city of Sacramento and Sac City Unified School District. So we're going to do a series of professional wrestling events at different schools throughout Sac City Unified and City of Sacramento. Wow. Different community center shows. We just did a show at the South Natomas Community Center. And that was really cool. So the blessings are really coming just with our commitment to the community. And I'd like to say our school too, where I trained, and was a graduate, and you would appreciate this. I was the third graduate ever of the school.
Hey, no
um,
doubt, no
and
doubt.
but that school, we have a number of students who train who are also on the autism spectrum. um, we have such a diverse crowd of students, and one of my big things with being BLAQLight, with being a superhero, so coming out with the mask and the cape and doing that character is so that I could be a superhero that the community could be connected with.
Mm,
So when people who look like us see me, they see not just a professional wrestler, but they see a superhero. They see someone who's willing to be in the community, who's willing to do the work, and we've done that work. So they know who I am, they recognize me, and they recognize things like the skin color. They recognize the advocacy for people who have mental health conditions, the intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities. Um, Being able to tie all of that together has been a complete honor, and I'm glad that those seeds that we planted are really starting to grow. So we actually got a key to the city from the city of Sacramento,
wow.
and it's hanging where we wrestle at, and um, I'm actually like literally now the superhero of Sacramento.
Wow.
So it's been really cool to like see all of it kind of come full circle, because you know how much that meant to me and to us to be able to be pillars in our community, and now in multiple ways here we are as pillars.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's dope that, you turned your dream, into reality. So, you know, I genuinely appreciate you being available. Like I said, last minute impromptu, we just hopping on it once you said you were down to be on it, I titled this show episode, "The BLAQLight Dream," because I think that, again, as someone who's known you since, you were 18 years old, I know that you've always talked about it, having the dream, and you've had some injuries and things like that that kind of that derailed, essentially, or tried to derail, what the dream and the vision was, but you pushed forward and made that become a reality. So I'm super happy for you and excited for you. I do want to, if you can, talk to me really briefly about, in your opinion, what are some of the best and worst things about your journey? I know you talked about the duality, right? And having to work with some of your the people that you service in the community, and them finding out about your professional wrestling and kind of intertwine, or even colleagues or something like that. But what do you think, in your opinion, are some of the best things about your journey, and some of the worst? And it could be about as a wrestler professionally, or it could be about serving the community, or just in life.
Yeah. I will start with the worst, so we can end it on a good note. I think the worst thing about the journey is running into those bumps in the road. Like you said, a lot of injuries. You helped me move into, I believe, two different my dorm in freshman year and our apartment our sophomore year, because I had surgery both those years right before it was time to move. Um,
Yeah, thanks a lot.
and I appreciate I
Perfect
appreciate
timing.
I appreciate you so much, dude. Not just for that, but for so much of what you've done. We'll get to that later. But for the worst part of the journey, those bumps in the road, where now you're questioning if this is even the route that you're supposed to take, and you're questioning yourself,
Mm,
and you're questioning your commitment, and then your commitment slips, and you will run into so many different things that happen, and nothing is ever perfect. So dealing with things like the injuries, I'm transparent and open about it. I was clinically diagnosed with my own mental health condition. So I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and major depressive disorder.
mm,
Um, it made it really difficult at times to find like what am I supposed to be doing? Where am I supposed to be going? And it made it those moments difficult, where I'm looking across the table at my peers, at my friends, at my coworkers, and I'm seeing their success. And it's hard for me uh, to understand why it's happening to someone else and not me, despite the work that I'm doing, despite how talented I might be. Um, those bumps in the road make it really difficult. I went through a lot for a lot of years. Like you said, at 18, that was a dream. At 32, I made it happen. So that was 14 years since you've known me that it took for me to make that dream a reality.
Mm.
Um, the best part, I would say, of the journey for me is that I was able to do it at the point that I did it. And I'm not saying that's the way that it should be done. That's not what I'm saying. But for me, that's the best part of my journey, that I get to now be in my 30s and be able to be someone who's chasing a dream and still, having a day job that makes me happy, that I feel contributes to the community in a way that I like, where there are young people who follow me and will see that, this is someone who achieved their dreams and didn't trip about what age. He overcame all these obstacles and whatnot. And then we have people that are our age or older than us who are able to uh, maybe revisit something that they might have put behind them, a dream that they had, and maybe they want to come back to it. That's the best part for me. You're muted, sir.
My bad. I like that, and it's interesting, how fitting how my Wise Word Wednesday, as you know, I've been doing Wise Word Wednesdays every week since 2017. So every single week for the past 6 years, it'll be 7 years in October, that we've provided people with a Wise Word Wednesday, just a small clip. I always say it's a quick speech to help you get through the week. Um, and so, the Wise Word Wednesday for today was keep going, right? It was, no matter what, keep going. When things get challenging, you have to keep going, no matter how difficult things are, because you had a dream, you had a vision, and you have no idea the amount of people that you're going to impact through you continuing to pursue your dream. And so I think it's fitting, with you on here talking today about, the best part about that journey is being able to say that you became the professional, that you aspired to be a long time ago. And I think the beautiful part for me is that it took 14 years. And I think a lot of people, when, because of social media or because of people being able to instantly see, it's seeming like it's instant success, right? Like someone may take 20 hours to make a YouTube video, but because it's a 5-minute video or a 10-minute video, they think, oh, all I need is 10 minutes, maybe 20 to make a video and it'll be fine. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. So with you being able to say like, no, it took 14 years before I got to the point where I was able to call myself a professional and say that I had accomplished the dream, is in my opinion helpful for people who are interested in pursuing any dream, not just a professional wrestler, but any dream that you have. I mean, it takes 4 years to get a bachelor's degree. You celebrate for one weekend and then you go work forever, right? So people have to understand the sacrifice. 4 years of your life being focused on a degree. Um, 14 years of your life being focused on what I want to do as a profession, i.e. wrestling. You got there, but you didn't give up regardless of the circumstances and the challenges and the traumatic experiences that you faced. In fact, you used them to help motivate you and inspire you to get to where you need to be. I do want to, because I know we're coming up on about 45 minutes here, so I do want to get to a couple of our main questions that we love to ask each artist. And again, the reason we ask this is because we know that people have, desires. Some people may desire to become a professional wrestler. Some people may want to know, what that process is like. So what advice could you give to others that can help separate them in their journey to becoming a professional wrestler?
Awesome. Uh, that's a good question. Um, I think that the best thing for someone to do is to find find the aspect of them that stands out and really make that something that you over exaggerate, turn that into something that's so much bigger than what it is. Um, if you're tall and you want to be a pro wrestler, use your height. If you can talk and you want to be a wrestler, use your voice. If
Mm,
you can lift people up and slam people with ease, and you want to be a pro wrestler, like use that strength. And then to tie along with that, um, it's to think about who you want to be in real life and really exaggerate that.
mm.
You've known me for a long time. Being a superhero is if I could genuinely give myself superpowers, I would have done it a million miles of years ago. I have arachnophobia. I would have gotten bit by the spider like Peter Parker if it would have gave me superpowers. um, like man, I just say really exaggerate, what your gifts are, what your passions are. So it's easy for me to go out and be a superhero because in the pro wrestling world, that's the one place that I can do that without judgment and without question. I can wear a mask and tights and people appreciate it. You can't go
Mm.
in a grocery store like that.
Right.
But
Not no
you know,
more, at least. You used to be during COVID, you could have.
during COVID, you couldn't get toilet paper, but you could wear what you
You could
wanted.
wear whatever you wanted.
But yeah, in the wrestling world, I can do that. I can wear sparkly colors and a mask and be exactly who I always wanted to be. And people appreciate that. And so finding what your voice is, finding what your strengths are, finding who it is you want to be, and really just expanding on that. What does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that dress like? And what
Mm.
is the message with that you want to get across?
I love that. I love that. I do want to acknowledge, Reese has been in the comments. I do want to acknowledge him. He said I had to go poot. And that's why I was on mute. That's not that's not true. I actually, my dog Simba he wants to go outside right now. So he was crying and stuff. I had to tell him, not right now. Give me a couple more minutes. I could take him out. So that's why, I went on mute. So my bad. It's not because I had to go poop. I don't even know if the microphone will be able to pick up my poop from here, but it's all good though. I wouldn't
No
do it on live.
judgment
I
either
would leave
way. I
that.
just want to throw that out there.
The other thing he said was, big facts that, FYB is consistent. I mean, we've been consistent since 2017 and we're going to keep being consistent because, my mentor said that it took him 16 years of doing his work in regards to doing motivational speaking. He said it took him 16 years before he finally kind of had a breakthrough. So my tribute to him is that I have to wait at least 16 years before I can decide to call it quits. Because if I know somebody that's in the business of what I do and they told me how long their grind was, I owe it to them to at least have a grind of that length before I decide to give it up. So definitely you're going to be hearing Wise Work Wednesdays from me, God willing, for the next couple years. So be prepared. Be prepared. The other question that, I wanted to ask you is the final question that we ask our audience, or that we ask our guests here on the Wise Work Wednesday show, is we ask them essentially to provide in life, like what's one wise word that you could leave the audience with about anything in life that you think is important. What would that word what would that word be? And it doesn't have to be about wrestling, but if you want to make it about wrestling, it's whatever you think is important. What's one wise word that you would leave to your younger self, right? If you could go back in time and literally just give a message to your younger self, what would that message be? And how do you think that'll be helpful if you can?
I It's a little more than one word, but the wise word would be to understand that accountability doesn't always mean fault.
Mm.
Um,
Ooh, talk that
and
talk.
yeah, man, that was where my when the switch hit. Um, for me, because and it happened because I was explaining accountability to some of my former students.
Mm,
Um, and the example I used was, let's say I have a cup of coffee. It's hot, fresh out the pot, and let's say I trip and I pour the coffee on you. You're burned by the coffee, right? Um, Fault would mean that I did it on purpose. Like you can say it was his fault, like he did it, but for me, it was like I looked at I didn't pour coffee on you. But the accountability part was I did trip and the coffee hit my guy. So taking accountability means what can I do in order to make sure that what just happened doesn't happen again? What can I do to make sure I don't trip and fall and pour coffee on you or anybody else? That's taking accountability because now you're fixing what went wrong to make sure it doesn't go wrong again. Whereas, taking blame, being at fault for something is, you accepting that you were wrong. I was a bad person because of what I did. Um, it's, like but I had to learn that like I may have done things that I'm not proud of, or I may have done things that hurt people. Um, but it wasn't because I wanted to hurt those people.
mm,
That was one of those things where it helped me just be okay with myself and accept that I'm a good person and I'm worthy of chasing my dreams. I'm worthy of being happy because something I may have done may have hurt this person, but my goal wasn't to hurt them. My goal wasn't to do that. And the best thing that I can do is to be transparent and say that that wasn't what I intended to do, and I take ownership that what I did had the effect that it had, and I'm willing to do the work that it takes to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore.
wow.
To me, that's being accountable. I'm not saying I'm a bad person, but I do want to make sure that this doesn't go wrong. And I think when we're able to be accountable with our own actions, look in the mirror and say, what didn't go as planned and what can you do differently, what can you take ownership of without pointing the finger to somebody else. You're able to really start to correct your own stuff. You're really able to like find, okay, this is what I could do differently, because you know what, maybe this other person isn't going to correct their actions.
Right.
Maybe this other person doesn't know what they did wrong, or maybe I didn't tell them that they did anything. Maybe they're not taking accountability on their own. So how do I pivot? What's my navigation route? And that's accountability. So being accountable, I think that's the best way to keep going, as it pertains to this. When you have a dream, when you have a goal, when you have something that you're chasing after, when you run into those stumbling blocks, how can you be accountable to work around that stumbling block, work over, work through, work under, some way to get to the other side? That's accountability. What can I do differently to make sure that I don't hit this stumbling block again?
No doubt, man. That's I think that's great. Yeah, man, we big on accountability over here. So, it's definitely great. But I like the fact that you differentiating between that and fault, and I think that, sometimes people who are super accountable, such as like people like myself, like sometimes we over emphasize or take credit for things that really aren't our faults at all. Because I'm big on like, hey, if it happened to me, it's my fault. I got to figure out, you know what I mean? But like I said, you can still be accountable for your actions and saying, yes, I did contribute to this, but I'm not the reason it happened. You know what I mean? And so I think that's dope that you're able to differentiate the two, and especially that you're able to educate young people to differentiate the two. Because when I was young, I didn't notice really the difference. I thought they were all kind of the same thing, but they aren't if you really think about it. So, man, this has been super dope. It's crazy that we could talk for 55 minutes, on some impromptu stuff. But it still be, very relative. And it's crazy how crazy it's crazy how relative it was to my Wise Word Wednesday earlier. Like you even mentioned it in your last word. He was like, keep going, keep grinding. And so I think it's, this was meant to be, I don't, yeah, because my other person was supposed to come through. We were supposed to have a completely different topic, but this worked out. It worked out well. So I definitely appreciate you for being willing to hop on at the last minute, on the Wise Word Wednesday show. And so I'm super excited for you. Congratulations on being the first champ. And I think it's hopefully you have a long reign. You know what I mean? And if you lose it, I know you're gonna get it back again. And so, man, thank you. For those that are listening again, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the Wise Word Wednesday YouTube channel. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify as well too. We are out there. We want to make sure that you get information, and if there's somebody that you feel would be a great guest on the Wise Word Wednesday show, feel free to drop their information, send them to me. You can message me on Instagram at FYB. I'm sorry, at Joe Spider _FYB, or at _fire your boss. We're happy to connect with them to get them on. But man, Mo, BLAQLight, I appreciate you genuinely for coming on to the show. You've always been, supportive in a bunch of different ways. And so I appreciate you supporting me in this way as well. FYB presents Wise Word Wednesdays. I'm going to leave you with a We Fresh, and I love you.